Hello and welcome. This is Notibot ENG. We're bringing you a recap of today's top news stories from around the world. Tensions are escalating in Eastern Europe as pressure mounts on Russian President Vladimir Putin to take further action in Ukraine. Meanwhile, tensions in the Middle East continue to rise, with Iran's war against Saudi Arabia driving oil prices to their highest levels in 4 years. We'll also be covering a major development in the US-Iran conflict and some worrying news from the United Nations about capital punishment. Let's get started with our top stories. As tensions continue to escalate in Eastern Europe, a pressing question emerges for Russian President Vladimir Putin. Will he escalate the conflict with Ukraine? Pressure builds on Putin to escalate Ukraine war. The international community is increasingly calling on Russian President Vladimir Putin to take a more aggressive stance in Ukraine, with mounting frustration among Russia's hardliners and growing Western support for the Ukrainian government. According to sources within the Russian military, a faction of hawkish officials is growing impatient with Putin's cautious approach, arguing that the West has been unfairly targeting Russia while showing leniency towards other nations' aggression. This sentiment is being fueled by high-profile statements from influential figures such as former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev and prominent politician Mikhail Khodorkovsky. Meanwhile, Western governments are intensifying their support for Ukraine, with major powers like the US and EU pledging billions of dollars in aid to the embattled nation. The Ukrainian government, led by President Volodymyr Zelensky, has been pressing Putin for a decisive response to its territorial claims, which have sparked widespread international condemnation. As tensions escalate, NATO officials are sounding alarm bells about the potential for a broader conflict involving the alliance. Russian military doctrine emphasizes the importance of defending its borders and interests, raising concerns that an escalation could draw in more nations. The stakes are high, with millions of lives hanging in the balance. As Putin weighs his options, he faces increasing pressure to act decisively, or risk being seen as weak by hardline supporters back home. The international community is watching closely, awaiting a response from Moscow that will shape the course of this already fraught conflict. As tensions escalate in the Middle East, a new flashpoint has emerged that's sending shockwaves through global markets and Washington politics. The ongoing Iran conflict has reached new heights as oil prices surge to a 4-year high, affecting millions of people worldwide. The war in the Middle East has caused a significant disruption in global energy supplies, with crude oil shipments severely curtailed by the closure of the Strait of Hormuz and the U.S. blockade of Iranian ports. The average price of gas in the U.S. has hit $4.39 a gallon, a 9-cent increase from Thursday and 34 cents higher than last week. This surge is largely attributed to the conflict in Iran, where internet access has been cut off for most of 2026. The move by the Iranian government has crippled the online economy, which had previously defied restrictions and international sanctions. The shutdown has devastating effects on the economy, with estimated daily losses ranging from $30 to $40 million. Around 10 million people rely on internet connectivity for their jobs, and many have seen their incomes evaporate. The Chamber of Commerce estimates that indirect losses are likely to be twice as much. Iran's supreme leader has vowed to protect the country's nuclear and missile capabilities, which President Trump had sought to curtail through airstrikes, and as part of a wider deal to cement the war's shaky ceasefire. Despite an uneasy truce with the US and Israel, Iran's rulers have refused to reverse the internet shutdown, sparking widespread criticism and concern about the humanitarian impact. The situation remains volatile, with no clear end in sight, and its effects are being felt across the globe. As tensions with Iran continue to escalate, a new warning from a prominent senator suggests the need for diplomatic restraint amid escalating conflict. Good evening, and welcome to tonight's news recap. A senior Democrat on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, Jeanne Shaheen, has urged the Trump administration to shift towards diplomacy with Iran as the conflict reached its 60th day. The U.S. and Israel launched strikes on Iranian territory on February 28, triggering retaliation from Tehran against Israel and U.S. allies in the Gulf. The closure of the Strait of Hormuz followed, a crucial waterway for global shipping. A 2-week ceasefire was announced through Pakistani mediation on April 8, but no lasting agreement was reached. U.S. President Donald Trump later extended the ceasefire without setting a new deadline, following a request from Pakistan. However, Shaheen argues that the administration lacks a clear strategy or exit plan for the war, which has resulted in the deaths of 13 U.S. service members and tens of thousands remaining at risk across the region. The conflict is also having a significant impact on global energy prices and shipping, particularly through the Strait of Hormuz. The War Powers Act sets a threshold of 60 days for military action, after which Congress must be notified if hostilities are to continue. Shaheen's statement highlights the human and economic toll of the war, as well as the need for a diplomatic solution. The situation remains tense, with no clear end in sight. As the conflict enters its sixth month, the international community is urging caution and restraint. The outcome will have far-reaching implications for global stability and security. A warning from Washington has sparked concern in global shipping routes as the U.S. cautions its citizens against making donations to Iran's maritime tolls. The United States has issued a warning to shippers against paying tolls or fees to Iran for passage through the Strait of Hormuz, branding such payments as donations that could lead to sanctions. The warning comes as tensions between Washington and Tehran remain high, with the U.S. maintaining its naval blockade of the strait for its third week. Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian has described the ongoing siege on Iran's ports as intolerable. Iran has proposed charging fees or tolls for vessels seeking to pass through the strait in the past, a move that Washington has rejected. The U.S. Department of the Treasury's Office of Foreign Assets Control, OFAC, has now warned shippers that paying such fees could result in sanctions. The advisory notes that Iran may offer payments framed as charitable donations or other forms of in-kind compensation. However, OFAC makes it clear that these risks exist regardless of payment method. This development matters because the Strait of Hormuz is a critical artery for global oil and gas shipments. About 1/5 of the world's crude oil and liquefied natural gas maritime trade passes through the strait. The Iranian government and its Revolutionary Guard Corps remain under U.S. sanctions, which has significant implications for their ability to export goods. The latest warning from Washington comes as Iranian state media reports that Tehran has sent a new peace proposal to the Trump administration. However, it remains unclear whether the U.S. will accept the offer or continue to maintain its hardline stance against Iran. Meanwhile, in a shocking turn of events, a young athlete from Iran has become the latest victim of the country's harsh justice system. A young Iranian karate athlete has been executed in Iran, according to reports from Tehran. Sassan Azadvar, just 21 years old, was put to death after being arrested during anti-government protests. Azadvar was detained on charges of enmity against God and spreading dissent, which are typically used to prosecute individuals involved in protests or perceived threats to the government's authority. The exact circumstances surrounding his arrest and execution are not publicly known, but reports suggest he was denied access to a lawyer during his interrogation. The UN High Commissioner for Human Rights has expressed concern over the recent surge in executions and mass detentions in Iran since the start of the country's war with neighboring countries. Amnesty International has also condemned the use of the death penalty as a means of controlling dissent, citing a growing list of human rights abuses by the Iranian government. The international community is calling for restraint and greater transparency from the Iranian authorities. The situation remains grim, with reports emerging of widespread arrests and detention of journalists, activists, and ordinary citizens. Human rights groups are warning that the use of the death penalty and mass detentions will only serve to further exacerbate tensions in the region. As the conflict continues to escalate, concerns are growing about the impact on human rights and the rule of law. The Iranian government's response to dissent is sparking alarm among international observers, who fear for the safety of those protesting against the regime's actions. That's all for tonight's news recap. We'll be back with more updates tomorrow. Thanks for watching. If you want to stay up to date on the latest news, please consider subscribing to our channel. Follow us on social media and visit our website for breaking news and in-depth analysis. We'll keep you informed as these stories continue to unfold.